They'd started off with a pretty great fruit-based soda brand. They'd gotten investment. They'd launched another product. It's a fruit-infused seltzer line, and found that all of a sudden they had a little bit of a crisis of opportunity. We brought in the company's founder, Bill Creelman, to talk about what happened next. Bill and I are going to sit down and talk through this crisis of opportunity that many of you will face in the future. BevNet readers know a couple of months you made the decision, I'm going to give it away, to discontinue your soda line even though it was still growing. Now let's walk through the process.
Yeah, well, I mean, our journey, I think, is a lot of what's been talked about over the last few days. So we started the product in 2010 as Spindrift soda. So it gives you a sense of where our conviction was. And for those of us that were kind of beginning to explore soda in 2010, everyone was kind of asking the same question, which is, where is this soda decline headed? Are people going to get out of bubbles? Is bubbles the problem? Is it sugar? Is it something else? So for us, I grew up on a farm in Western Massachusetts. I was a farm kid, raised on local food, unpasteurized milk, that sort of thing. And for me, the solution was a sparkling beverage made with real ingredients, plus sugar. And so our initial offer was a more caloric product with sugar. We started to make an unsweetened version of that in 2012, and frankly, it was a great idea and tasted horrible. For people that lived in the Boston area, they would have tried it. It was in a glass bottle. And while you think sparkling water with fresh lemons naturally must taste delicious, it actually was really challenging. But we liked the idea. We got initial reaction from some people that were diehard fans, and so we ended up working at it year after year until 2014, where we made some big investments in equipment. We started really working with our farming partners. We started working with our fresh juice suppliers. And don't forget, no one had ever taken a real ingredient and tried to put it into a sparkling format. So there was no roadmap. We were kind of making it up as we went along. So last year, we faced the decision. Now we have two products. We have a much improved sparkling water. We have a soda.
They're still growing. They're
both still growing. And really, we all sat around a table and said, we believe now with our sparkling water that we have solved for the original question we asked in 2010, which is, what eventually will replace soda?
Why did you feel like you had to kill one, though?
Well, I think there were a couple of reasons. One was the external factors. So if you look at the sparkling aisle today, it is just completely confusing. You have unsweetened next to sweetened, next to diet, next to lightly sweetened. As a consumer, you walk in and you really don't know. And if you look at our packaging, it's evidence of that journey. We started calling ourselves in 2012 Spindrift Water, which was a mistake right out of the gate. And then we evolved into seltzer. We thought that was great, but only in New England, because most of the country doesn't know what seltzer means outside of New England. And then we eventually arrived at sparkling water with real squeezed fruit. So that's number one. Number two, we did a kind of a poll internally, and I went to a whiteboard and wrote down all of these adjectives without telling people what product I was referring to. So I said sparkling, I said lightly sweetened, I said real ingredients, I said delicious with a sandwich, and I invited the whole team in to come and write down what product they thought I was referring to. And sure enough, they came back and it was split right down the middle.
Oh, so that made the decision easy.
Oh, it was very easy after that. But that didn't mean, it just meant we now had an issue that we had to resolve. And I think the last thing and most important is that At a certain point in 2015, 16, we had been at this for a long time. And our team had been working and working and, investing and long hours in plants. I mean, all the things that we all do to get a business off the ground. And we developed a real belief in the fact that we really think this product is transformative. And so I think above all else, it was really a kind of a conviction, sort of a quasi-religious belief that we can really do something important with this line.
So it's interesting because we just talked about scrappiness. Now we're talking about faith.
That's right.
Right, faith in the product.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, look, my product development philosophy is to try to do something no one's ever seen before, put a marker downstream, and see if popular opinion eventually makes its way to you. And sometimes it's successful, and sometimes it isn't. But when you do start to see the kind of success that we are starting to see with this product and really develop a product that you could really be proud of, that's where you really have to get behind it.
That's really interesting. But you're cutting a ton of revenue. So how do you rationalize that revenue loss?
That's hard, yeah. I mean, we had, $3 to $4 million in the soda line. So we don't do anything haphazard. This was not just one day kind of let's stop making this and everyone packed their bags and went home. We are, as Ryan was saying, we are numbers geeks. We really, ever since 2010, we've got all of the reporting in from all of our customers. And you may recall that the sodas were actually refrigerated. So we worked with about 80 different refrigerated distribution systems. So we knew where we were, and we basically went in reverse. We went all the way back to our first customer, and just as they believed in us in 2010 and 11 and 12, we said, believe in us that this is where sparkling is going beyond, in 16 and 17 and beyond. So it was painful. It was a lot of time back in, my car driving and seeing old friends and saying, please stay with us on this journey.
How'd you test? Because you had to have tested it first.
We did. So we live in the field. I mean, I still think that a lot of the learnings outside of BevNet, of course, a lot of the learnings that you develop are just sitting in stores, in cafes, in restaurants, at club stores, just observing customers. So in this case, we chose one restaurant in Boston called Sorrel's, you may be familiar with, and we spent 4 hours watching in person as people walked up, both products in front of them. They could grab the glass bottle, the soda if they wanted. They could grab the sparkling water. We wrote down who it was, how they responded, the label turn, what they were reading about. And then, of course, we watched the actual reporting numbers to see when the switch was made in a smaller setting, how did it play out, and it was all very positive. But food service was really, just to be clear, was really the risk. It's really where most of that business was, and I'm proud to say that 99% of those customers have continued with us.
That's amazing. And you guys live and die in food service in some respects.
Yeah, I mean, we took, I think, the harder, sort of less conventional route. I wish I could tell you it was some amazing strategy that we hatched up. It was really, frankly, in 2010, the only people that wanted a refrigerated, fresh fruit, sparkling water with sugar, soda, were really these food service accounts, the Sweetgreens, the Cavas, the Dig-Ins. And why they wanted it is because they were all telling you where their lettuce came from and their chicken and farm raised, and then they had a big box soda company that was your choice at the beverage, at the counter. So we came in and we really just started having a conversation with them. What is this consistent with your brand? Would you think your brand would be, that a product like Spindrift would be a better fit? And that was really the genesis of everything we've done, was that conversation. The conversation is still the same now. It's still, how do we help you solve a problem? How do we fit in as a solution as people move out of soda? It's just, I think in general, the conversation just overall has evolved.
And that stream is moving, is moving things to you a lot faster.
It is.
At this point. I mean, did you expect things to accelerate like this, not just for your product, but for the move away from sugar that we've seen?
So, I was fortunate, and I was in the business before with a brand called Stirrings, which was a cocktail mix brand. And, you never know until you do these things, and you can look back the benefit of some time. But the cocktail mix learnings were really helpful. That was a trend that went like a rocket ship. There were premium vodkas suddenly, and then people needed something to mix with them. And we happened to be well positioned to offer a solution. So I think the sparkling water opportunity, the evolution away from sugar that we've heard so much about over the last 2 days, I think that is absolutely happening at that speed. I also think just ideas happen quicker now. We used to say that when Nantucket Nectars was around, you needed 1 point of differentiation. And then when we started Stirrings, you needed 3. I think you actually need 5 now, from the liquid to the packaging to your route to market to where it sits on the shelf. Are you in the middle of the store? So I think everything is now visible on display. There's no more sort of hiding and maturing quietly in some obscure part of the country. It's all happening now.
It's fascinating, though, because at the same time, we're in this premium mixer moment as well.
Yeah, it's back.
And there's a lot, as well as sort of a premium soda market. How do you avoid that? Or how do you walk away from one particular boom toward another? Is it just the size of the opportunity?
I know we've heard a lot of different takes over the last few days, even the guys from Ugly who were talking about. I think what's happened is that you do now have, where there was this category blur, when we talk internally, I think it's pretty well sorted out in the US. I think there's a well-defined sparkling water market, and there's a craft soda market, without question. We have essentially, whereas 4 years ago, they were sort of all in the same place. I think I've spent a bunch of time in the UK. I think the UK is maybe a little bit behind, where there isn't a well-defined sparkling market water, where I think Ugly and a few other brands are probably the sparkling. So here, when we talk about Spindrift as, if you look at the sparkling water market, I think there's last count, 217 brands. And if you turn them all around on the shelf and looked at them without knowing the front of the product, they would all have the same ingredients: sparkling water and natural flavors. So, and it's 100 years it's literally they've been around for almost that amount of time. So when we talk about defining who we are within the category, people know what a sparkling water is. They have an expectation of something light, something bubbly, a little fruity. What we're trying to do now is, as the 218th entry.
Yeah, you've jumped into a big pool now. You've committed yourself into the fastest growing category there, into one with some really fierce competition, some great brands. Why are your investors letting you do this?
First of all, it's fun because, to be part of what we believe will be sparkling 2.0. We think that the first 100 years were defined by kind of that soda profile. And I think, this is somewhat self-serving, but I think the next 100 years will be defined by unsweetened beverages and what can you do that's interesting around that. When we did our repackaging, which you guys were kind enough to profile, and really looked at what was happening in sparkling water. Sparkling water is a commodity, effectively, or has been, and it's defined by what isn't in it. It's got no sodium. It's clear. It's it's got a list of no's. I talked to the team about, think about our product like someone you're meeting at a cocktail party. If you met someone at a cocktail party and they were a list of no's, if they brought to you essentially collectively nothing, would that be an interesting, how long would you be in for that conversation?
Well, I'm banking on that
That's
because I'm the list of no's. I'm usually Usually
a
banking
never-ending
on the
stream of
friendliness
no's.
of the person.
But I mentioned that, of course, to say part of our challenges and why you see no no's on the front of our packages, we actually want to bring personality back into sparkling water. So I like to say, jokingly to people, do you drink beer? And the response to that would be,
Yes.
okay. I saw you at about 10. I can concur based on last night. I next asked the question, if your only choice in drinking beer was with Budweiser, how would you feel? And your response would be likely okay, because you wouldn't know there was anything else but Budweiser. So those are the trading conditions that we're facing today. Everyone knows sparkling water, but they only know one type of it. But imagine if you could see that the craft beer movement was coming before it was coming. Imagine being Sam Adams or Dogfish or Stone or one of these great brands where at the time they were just kind of working, doing their thing. We believe we're sitting at the beginning of what will become the pioneering craft movement of unsweetened.
Upselling of a commodity.
Well, that's your way of putting it. I mean, I try to romanticize. I mean, I think, craft beer to me,
Premiumization.
it is. I mean, so look at Ben and Jerry's when there was just, 2 or 3 sort of, ice cream choices, or the beer example, or premium, coffee before Starbucks came in. Yes, it is premiumized, but there's also so much other stuff that goes around that. And with Spindrift, we're about real. So we have said, what does real mean beyond just real ingredients? It's about behaving in a real way. It's about honest communication. It's about understanding where our products are coming from.
So let's talk about that for a sec, though, because I don't want to just reject it as upselling. I want to talk about the challenge set that you've opened up, because there's a thesis.
There is a thesis. Yeah, so right. So I think, obviously our point of difference is that we're selling a product without natural flavors. So we made the decision right after we won BevNet Product of the Year to essentially, for the products that had natural flavors, we took them out. And I don't want to sit here and indict natural flavors at all. I just don't know what they are. And so I think until we really understand what's in natural flavors, and ethanol and propylene glycol and all these kind of weird things that are swirling around, I just couldn't get comfortable turning around to my consumer and offering them something that I didn't understand. I mean, how as the person that made the liquid and running the company, can you not at least offer a reasonable answer? And now, I mean, just look at Amazon reviews, look how people are shopping sunscreen, and they're getting to the narrowest, tiniest wording on the back of these labels. And so I think what I'll say is I think there's going to be an opportunity for the traditional sparkling waters, and I think there's going to be a whole bunch of opportunity for people that differentiate themselves along the lines that we have.
So that's the next downstream marker.
Those are your words. I think I do think that there is more and more. I mean, even in some of the conversations over the last few days, I think people are starting to wonder, what is this kind of black hole that is natural flavors? And so I think it's only fair. It's hard, almost every kind of question around food and beverage is starting to get answered, right?
Yeah.
No one can hide anymore. We're all out there. We're all talking, and there's, and I almost assume that I want to assume that my consumer can go in and watch me batch the product, stand there next to me, watch the fresh lemons come in, watch the fresh orange juice, watch all these things come in, dump into a vat, add sparkling water, and go. I don't want to have to worry about, there's just one step I don't really want you to see. So that's the position we've taken.
Well, I think the next question about food and beverage is, when's lunch? So I want to thank you so much for joining us and for taking us through what I know is a carefully thought out and difficult decision, and to sort of open up on it a little bit as you're in the middle of this transformation is really kind of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. See you, bud.